In our closing with our Oresteia, I thought what I'd do is return to our toolbox. You'll recall we've got a set of tools that we've been working on: structuralism, functionalism, myth and ritual, and psychoanalysis, and we've been having those around and dipping into them. When we run into something interesting in a myth, grab a tool, tinker with it, grab another tool, tinker with the myth again, and see what kind of results you get from this toolbox of theoretical tools. I'm going to pick up two and use them with the material that we've been working on in the Oresteia: functionalism and structuralism. Now, looking back at the kind of reading I've been doing in the most recent couple of lectures for the class, it's pretty clear that I've been doing already a functionalist kind of reading, haven't I? Remember, functionalism says that myths are told in order to legitimize certain social and cultural forms. So the kind of take I've been giving you all on the Oresteia is that what Aeschylus is up to here is telling a myth in a certain kind of historical context. He's telling a myth that is justifying and legitimizing the social norm of a new scheme of justice, as iterated in this court of the Areopagus, a long and deeply held traditional court in Athens, talking about it as being important along these new democratic lines. That is very much straightforward functionalism. The vision that I'm offering here, and it's just a reading, there are many others that are possible of what the Oresteia is all about, but the vision I'm offering here is that Aeschylus has a sort of purpose to this telling of this story. And the purpose, what is making it so attractive and appealing to the audience that's seeing it, is that it is for them legitimizing a social cultural norm, this importance of their institution of justice, their institution of justice in the form of these courts. Now, I thought I'd toss in another one, a structuralist reading. This is one that came out of, I've taught this course many times here at University of Pennsylvania, and I get emails from students all the time as I'm teaching it, and one of them suggested to me, isn't it possible that what we have when we look at the Oresteia is a meditation on a binary opposition between two ways of imagining the most important kind of social connections that are made between human beings? On the one hand, we have social connection based on blood ties, and on the other hand, we have social connection based on voluntary associations. Those two means of trying to figure out how humans are supposed to be connected to one another sometimes come into conflict. And when they do, we've got difficulty and an urgency to try to figure out what's happening. Well, the difference between these two poles of blood ties on the one hand and voluntary associations on the other hand provide, as we talked about when we were talking about structuralism, kind of the voltage that makes this story tick and propels it forward. I actually think that that's a really interesting and good proposal, and I've been working on it over the years to try to clarify and bring some further insight to it. Remember, structurists are looking for binaries that are going to be the underlying drivers of the stories that they're talking about. And in this particular reading, on the one side, with the blood ties connection, we've got the Furies, we've got the idea of miasma, the chthonic deities that have blood tie connections. We've got the relationship between Atreus and his offspring, and Agamemnon and his son, and Orestes and his mother, all these connections based on blood ties and all the difficulties that arise out of that. On the other side, the thing that Aeschylus is considering here is a new way of understanding how human society is organized around voluntary associations. Here, blood ties are not so important. Remember Apollo's argument, playing down the connection between, in his case, the mother and the son, but between otherwise what one would think of as having a very strong blood relationship. Instead, the kinds of associations that Apollo holds up and venerates are ones, excuse me, based on voluntary associations, in particular here, the association between Agamemnon and Clytemnestra. So voluntary associations taking on a stronger role, and the back and forth between them, though, is never fully resolved. Aeschylus is working on the tension between the two to provide the energy that propels the story forward. So a structuralist reading could suggest that what we have here is a hidden binary that's pushing the story forward between ways of organizing human society, on the one hand by blood relations, on the other hand by voluntary associations.